And hello, welcome to this video. So in the last video, you saw that the moment I click this generate random number, suddenly the chicken burger code doesn't work. Why is that so? Because well, the chicken burger code, okay, the chicken burger code only activates when you get the page. That means when you load the page, the chicken burger, the code activates. Okay, and view data is kind of temporary, but maybe explain that in another video. This is actually quite important to understand how the web pages work. But yeah, the way to get it to work is to really reload the web page without clicking on this generate random number button. So click the test page and then you see that the course actually comes back, because that will actually load up the page. Okay, so OnGet means this function will activate when you get a copy of the page. All right. Okay, but when you click the button, the onPost thing is supposed to work, but I think I used the wrong ASP keyword. It should be asp-page-handler, not asp-input-handler. Okay, let's do that. I think I have to really remember all of these things in order to work fast, but this should help it to work now. Yep, see, the RNG 5612 will now be present. Then I can of course do the same for the others as well. I'll do two more. One for scoped, of course. So I'll change this to scoped RNG. So this will be scoped RNG1. And then the last one will be for singleton. Singleton RNG. Okay, singleton RNG1. And if we reload, we will be able to see 3 pages. You just have to wait for the server to rebuild its objects. So you see, now if we generate the random number, there are 3 random numbers that will be generated. One's transient, one scoped, and one singleton. Alright. At first glance, they are all very similar, but every time you click the generate random number, what happens? Okay, the web page will kind of reload. Okay, the web page will reload, and then what happens is that the dependencies I transient RNG1, I scoped RNG1, the dependencies transient RNG1, scoped RNG1, and singleton RNG1 will be injected as objects because this code here is this code is over here, so they'll be injected into the constructor of the page, and then they will be put into these what do you call that? They'll be put into our private objects. Okay, private objects. And then one copy of each will be inside our class. So there's a transient RNG1, scope RNG1, and singleton RNG1, and then they'll all be displayed over here. Okay, so the random number generator will activate once you construct the object, and then the value of that random number will be put into the value as you saw in the last video. That's how we coded the thing. Okay, so if we click the generate random number, what happens? You'll notice the singleton RNG does not change at all. So I can click a few more times. Okay, the singleton RNG doesn't change at all. The scope RNG and transient RNG seems to change. So what's actually happening? It means that every time you reload the page, okay, you're actually constructing, okay, the page. You can think of it as an object, okay, because pages, they are literally like objects. Okay, objects, they are made based on a template, which is this page model class that you're seeing here. So this is the template for that object. Okay, so an object is the copy of the class, so to speak. And what exists inside the copy? It's or what do you put inside the copy of this class? You will inject in a transient RNG1, transient RNG2, scope RNG1, scope RNG2, singleton RNG1, and singleton RNG2. Okay, all of these dependencies will be injected in as objects. However, okay, the most distinct one for all of these 3 is singleton. This is like the odd one out. So what's going on here? So when you actually do this build serve, you add this singleton. Okay, this means that the object is created once and only once for the whole website. Okay, what do I mean? So we make the random number object from the random number class. Okay, and then after that, this same random number object will be used throughout the entire. It will be used throughout the entire web app, no matter how many times the page is reloaded. It will be the same object. Okay, that's why when I click this thing, when I click this generate random number, okay, this will submit a post request which will reload the entire page. Okay, but when the entire page is reloaded, a singleton random number RNG, transient RNG, and scope RNG will be fed into the web page as dependencies. And then this random number here, 8922, will be generated. Okay, only once. So the singleton is only, the singleton will only generate the random number once, because the singleton object is only created once and for all. Okay, once and for all for the entire web page. Okay, what about scope and transient RNG? Okay, so here's what's happened. Okay, I will try to do. That's why I needed a second object. So let me just do the singleton part first, because that one's the easiest to understand. Okay, singleton means that you make one object once and for all. That's why it's called single. You make this object once and for all for the entire website, so that no matter where you have this IRNG singleton dependency injection, no matter how many times you call this IRNG singleton injection, whether it's in this test page or in another test page or in all of your web pages, it will be exactly the same object. So that's why over here I loaded in 2 copies of the singleton RNG object, so that 2 copies of the singleton RNG object are supposed to be loaded into singleton RNG1 and singleton RNG2. Okay, loaded into these private variables here. And then what are we supposed to do? We want to take a look at the value of both of these things. So let's take a look at singleton RNG1 and singleton RNG2. So if what I was discussing is true, then singleton RNG1 and singleton RNG2 should be exactly the same value. Okay, why? Because the same object is being used. Okay, the same object is being used to, where is the, what is this code? CSHTML 73.2. Okay, expected right. I copied it into the wrong place. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing with curly braces. A bit hard to see sometimes. Always good to make your code neat as possible. Mine's not the best of examples, but can always be done better. Okay, so we'll have the singleton RNG2. Okay, object under view data. Okay, and this will be singleton RNG2. Okay, so both of these are actually the same number here. Okay, can you see? And maybe I will just store them on the same line for aesthetic reasons. Okay. Okay, so you see 8922, 8922. So no matter how many times you sort of put it into this constructor, or no matter where you load this thing from, no matter how many times you reload the web page, you'll notice that this singleton object is exactly the same object. Now let's do the same for transient RNG1 and 2. Okay, I'll paste this here, and I'll paste this here, and I will save this value under transient RNG2, and this one under scoped RNG2. Okay. And then what will I do? I will do help us have some comparison here by displaying the view data. Scope RNG1, yank it here, paste it here, paste it here, and copy this, yank this, and paste this. Okay, now save it. And let's try again. It takes some time to build. And I think I should do some space here, and then I'll make sure that this is transient RNG 1 and 2, just to make sure that we are displaying the right things. So if you take a look here, the singleton RNG, okay, we actually reloaded the entire web page. That's why the singleton RNG kind of I think it was a hot reload or something like that. Okay, the entire web page was reloaded. That's why the singleton RNG changed. But scope RNG and transient RNG, yeah, they change. But look at this. Look at this. I keep pressing the generate random number. The singleton RNG stays the same. Scoped RNG, well, it changes, but it changes to exactly the same number every time. Whereas the transient RNG, it will change both times. You can see? Yeah, so this actually shows the main difference. Now, to understand the main difference, we need to come back here. So let me quit the test page CS.html and come here. So remember what are we doing when we load the page? We are actually creating a page object or page model object. And then we are loading transient RNG1, 2, scope RNG1 and 2, singleton RNG1 and 2. Okay, singletons, okay, basically once you use that singleton object, we create that dependency injection for that singleton object. That singleton object will be used every time this IRNG singleton dependency injection is required. So the same copy will be pasted every time into the same thing, right? The same copy of this singleton object will be pasted into this dependency injection. So it's as good as creating one object inside program.cs and using that object every time that this singleton service is being called for. Okay, this singleton service being called for means to say yes, that dependency injection is being called for. And then every time this dependency injection is requested for singleton, the same object is being used all the time. Okay, unless the whole web page somehow crashes and you have to restart. And that's a different story. Okay, scoped is slightly different. Scoped objects, every time you reload the web page, you notice that the scoped objects are different. Okay, every time you reload the web page, the scoped objects are different. However, if you call the scoped object within the web page, if you load the web page once, but you ask for 2 of these scoped objects, these 2 scoped objects will be exactly the same. So scoped objects, they will reload once per web page. Okay, they will reload once per reload of the web page. Okay, so what happens is that when you load this page, okay, when you load this page model, the singleton objects, they will be exactly the same. But when you load this page model, the scoped object, one fresh copy will be created, and this fresh copy will be fed into this dependency injection place. Okay, wherever, no matter how many times you request this IRNG scope service, or you request a scope service. So that makes it different from a singleton in the sense that you sort of make a new object every time you reload the web page. Okay, so yeah, but yeah, singleton is that you have the same object every time you reload web page. Scope object is for every web page you have one scoped object. Okay, for every web page you have one scope object. So every time you reload the web page object, you have one scope object to match to that web page. Okay, so that's the scope. For transient, as you can see, the random numbers here are different from each other because those are two two of these transient objects. Okay, these transient objects, there are two copies being created, two fresh copies being created of the transient object every time you call for it. So where for scoped, the number of copies is equal to the number of times you load the web page. For transient, the number of copies, the number of fresh objects you create, is the number of times you call for it. Okay, no matter if it's the same web page or different web page. Whereas for singleton, the number of objects you make is the same number of times you start up your website, right? So singleton is, it will live for the entire time of the website. The scoped object will live for the entire time of the web page. The transient object will live for the entire time of one request. So for one request, you create one object. For the second request, you make a second object. Whereas for scope, for one load of the web page, you make one of these objects. For singleton, you make it once at the start of the entire website, and then you don't ever create a fresh object again. Okay, so no matter how many times you call for this same singleton copy. Alright, so hopefully this example helps to illustrate the difference between transient, scoped, and singleton in a manner that doesn't use too much technical jargon other than dependency injection and classes and objects and services. Okay, so these are all things we discussed before. They're not the most intuitive of concepts at first, but I mean, once you get the flow, it should become a little bit clearer. I think that's all I have for this video. Hope it helps you, understand what's going on a little bit better. Okay, I don't have the best explanations, but learning this has helped me. Making these videos have helped me, but I hope you enjoy it as well. Thanks for watching.